Chris Nolan, you sly dog, you've only gone and done it again. I'm not going to waste any time here. The Odyssey is a straight-up masterpiece and has once again shown why Nolan is an all-time great director. Now, I don't want to spoil this movie for any of you as it has only just come out, but a brief summary of the story is the story of Odysseus, from Homer's classic poem, a mythological Greek hero who is attempting to return home to his kingdom of Ithaca after the famous Battle of Troy, where Odysseus and Agamemnon and their Greek armies famously built a wooden horse and hidden army inside of it with the aim of tricking the Trojans into believe the Greeks had gone home and left them a gift as a tribute to the gods and an offering of peace. Then in the dead of night, Odysseus and his men climb out of the Trojan horse, open the gates of Troy and allow their remaining armies into the city and win the war. The story of the Iliad, basically. Now, it is important to say that this entire story is mythical, so it's not a real-life depiction of a real conflict, which is something many people may not be aware of. This isn't a history channel, so I'm not going to dwell on the historical accuracy of something that probably never even happened. I would instead like to describe why the movie is so great. Let's get the easiest part out of the way first. Nolan has always had an amazing cinematography design, and this might be his most incredible looking film yet. The huge sets with sprawling scenery, vibrant colours, incredible contrast, and the amazing use of practical design and CGI. And you just listen to some of the stuff he got the stunt doubles to do to minimise CGI, it's just incredible. This movie is amazing to look at. I mean, virtually every scene is a work of art, every frame a painting. Watched in IMAX to enjoy to the fullest. Just the scenes of them sailing on open oceans are jaw-dropping. I mean, I really cannot stress how beautiful this movie is. And that's not the main thing I like about the movie, but it is a big point. Now, I don't know what it is about Matt Damon and him not being able to find his own way home, but he sure has had a lot of practice for a role like this. Now, there was a lot of great performances in this movie. In fact, I think just about everyone in this movie performed very well. But my two favourite performances were Matt Damon and Robert Pattinson. Pattinson is one of the best actors working to date, and that's because of his range, which is showcased in a movie like this. He's not on screen for very long in this movie, but he really makes his presence felt. In my opinion, he plays this role very similar to his role in The King. If you've seen that movie, he's an arrogant nobility, hungry for power. Only in this case, he's not French, thank God. His facial expressions are a work of art. He might genuinely be one of the best actors when it comes to non-verbal facial cues ever. I think the way he can tell a story on his face without saying a word is incredible. Matt Damon's performance was the best in this movie and one of the best of the year. I love performances that display a wide range of emotions, and Damon's performance in this movie just does exactly that. Odysseus goes through happiness, sadness, rage, grief, and everything in this movie. And to fully explain his greatness in this performance, I want to break down the themes of the movie, which I think are the strongest part of the film. Now, this next part will contain spoilers, you have been warned. I mean, you've had 6,000 years to read the poem, so don't get mad at me. The overall themes of this movie is faith and repentance. Everyone in this movie believes in certain laws and rules for everyday life. These laws are, religious or spiritual, and they are referred to as Zeus's laws. The main law, or the golden law, that they refer to in this movie over and over again being treat others the way you want to be treated. Do unto others wish you want unto yourself. And they do this because they believe that any human being could be a god in disguise. And as a result of this, you should show hospitality and kindness to all guests, because it might be a test from the gods. And in this movie, we see callous and cruel acts committed to others by lots of characters, and all of those characters in turn do end up facing punishment. This film is essentially Odysseus' punishment for his deception and his moral betrayal that led to the barbaric attack on the Trojan people. Throughout the movie, he keeps having visions of a young woman. We later learn this woman to be an innocent Trojan girl who was executed in front of Odysseus simply for being Trojan. And this girl is the image of Athena, because when she is beheaded, so is the statue of Athena. So Athena forms into this girl and almost torments Odysseus throughout the story. Then, on his voyage home, after a successful conquest, his men are slowly killed at the hands of various divine entities and happenings, like the giant children of Poseidon, sorcerers and witches, sirens, and other mystical phenomena. Odysseus is told by a witch to head to Hades, where he will speak to the gods. where he will speak to the gods through shades. Odysseus then arrives in Hades and speaks to his fallen men, who tell him to head west until he reaches land to honour their deaths, and that the gods are angry at him and only he will survive from all of his men. His survival isn't a reward, it's a punishment. Odysseus is a hero who would rather die for his people than have his people die for him. Yet when the gods strike, he is powerless to save his men. Despite all his efforts and warnings, he is left alone. Then he is kept as a prisoner on a beach for years by Calypso, until the gods finally decide he is worthy to return home, where he then becomes almost a weapon for the gods. He acts as Zeus' soldier to punish those breaking Zeus' law, like the suitors. Then after his purpose is fulfilled and his punishment is completed, his soul is finally freed, and then he eventually heads west with his wife to complete his mission. This whole 3-hour movie is a big, perfect metaphor for the indomitable human spirit, the belief that we have purpose, and the faith in something that we all have to achieve something that we think is bigger and more important than ourselves. This whole mythology is still relevant today. It is very rare that religion or faith is such a key point in a film and that it comes off well, instead of being preachy and irritating. But this is done really well, because this movie isn't trying to make you believe in any religious or mythological gods. It is just trying to teach people the power in being good as a person and atoning for your transgressions, which is a positive message that we need now more than ever. Matt Damon's performance throughout this movie is in line with these themes. In the beginning, he is confident, almost arrogant in a way. Yet when he returns to Ithaca after his punishment, he is humble and respects the powers of the gods and acts in line with Zeus' law. But most importantly, he has a new outlook on life and his role in the world and in his kingdom. And Damon portrays that perfectly. I think The Odyssey for me is a top 4, maybe even top 3 Nolan film. Granted, it has been a while since I've seen many of his other films, but for me The Odyssey is up there with Inception, Interstellar, and I'd probably put it just below Oppenheimer and The Dark Knight. Nolan's signature style is notable throughout this movie. You know, the story is told out of order, and time isn't used in a regular linear format. It's chopped up and told out of sync. Like when the Battle of Troy is only shown right at the end, to maximise suspense. Typical Nolan stuff. It's really, really interesting. I hope this movie is received in the way it should be, which is as an epic fantasy journey. It's almost like a Hobbit or a Lord of the Rings, rather than a historically accurate retelling of actual events, which I think many people who weren't familiar with the story of the Odyssey perceived it was going to be. Honestly, I'd give this movie a solid 8.5 or 9 out of 10. I definitely think it's one of the best films of the year so far. I think it's a story that's powerful. I think it's a movie that's going to be talked about for decades to come. I think this will go down as an all-time classic. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.